Very interesting articles online about you, Gary. The Guardian describes you as Britain's most successful real estate agent. The Sunday Times describes you as the agent for billionaires. And the Times says that you are the agent that won't get out of bed for less than £50 million. As we can see, it's always a busy place here at Beauchamp Estates. Your phone is always going.
The ability to sell is certainly not the most important trait that a person who comes to work for any agency has to have. 70 odd years of life have made me more gentle, I don't know. I was always rushing when I was younger.
Well, behind every successful man is a very influential woman.
Thank you.
And I believe you sold that for a world record fee of £210 million.
Actually, it wasn't a fee, it was a price, and the price was not 210, it was 225 million pounds.
225. Welcome to this week's podcast hosted by Navigate Finance, your real estate finance partner, where you can realize your potential. Today, we're joined here by the famous Gary Hersham of Beauchamp Estates. Gary, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well indeed. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well, thanks. You know, as we can see, it's always a busy place here at Beauchamp Estates. Your phone is always going. Is that a typical day in the life of Gary Hersham?
I'm trying to make the day less typical in as much as I'm trying to restrict the people I deal with so that I have a little bit more free time. I'm probably very close to pensionable aged. How old do you have to be to get a pension?
65, is it?
Oh, well, then I'm well over the age of pensionable age. I forgot. What a shame. The answer is it is a normal day for me. I enjoy it phenomenally.
Well, it doesn't look like you're anywhere near pensionable age, but and it's always good to keep busy. You know, I remember, Gary, the first time I came here was many years ago. I was probably 17 or 18. It was a summer internship, and I remember, you know, being struck by this beautiful building in the heart of Mayfair on Curzon Street. And as soon as I came in, I was really taken aback by all the framed images of completed transactions, and really felt out of my depth, a little nervous, of course. Sat down with you, and I've always just been curious about, you know, what it takes to be the number one, you know, high-end real estate agent. And thank you for this opportunity. I feel like now is a unique opportunity for me to be able to understand a bit more about you. And very interesting articles online about you, Gary. The Guardian describes you as Britain's most successful real estate agent. The Sunday Times describes you as the agent for billionaires. And the Times says that you are the agent that won't get out of bed for less than £50 million. So firstly, is that true? And secondly, how do these statements, titles, articles make you feel?
The answer to the first question is everything I hope is true, with the exception of I will get out of bed for a £5 million or a £1 million sale. It's absolutely wrong to say I won't get out of bed for a £50 million sale. By the way, I get out of bed very early in the morning, every morning of my life. And if an old client or an old applicant or somebody I've dealt with over the years comes to me, whatever that level is, I will do my best either to help him or direct him to the right person in our team worldwide to help him with. The second question is, how do the articles make me feel? Well, I feel enormously honoured by the articles. I don't consider myself to be as important or as described by the Times, the Financial Times, the Sunday Times, the Observer, the Guardian. I just feel humbled by the way they have written about me, and perhaps I ought to think, well, you know what, Gary, you've been doing it for 40 odd years. Maybe it's a bit about time to take a little bit of praise, but I just want to continue as I am, and anybody can come and ask for a property from me, and I will do my best to help at whatever sort of level it is.
Yeah, absolutely, and well deserved. You know, it's nice to see the merit of your work.
By the way, you should know one thing, that one of the first deals I ever did was with your father, and the building was in Abbey Road in St John's Wood, and it was a vacant building in St John's Wood with some probably 80 or 90 flats. And to put it in perspective, if I told you we sold that building all those years ago for £5 million, you can't buy a flat in St John's Wood practically for £5 million today.
Well, absolutely
So I sold
not.
the entire building with your dad and with a fellow by the name of Kazaz, probably in 1981 or 82.
And if you could adjust that for inflation and where the market is now today, what would that be worth? What could that be worth?
I can't remember the square footage or the amount of apartments in the building, but finding a vacant building of that size, probably £100 million. We're selling another one on the Regent's Park roundabout, overlooking Regent's Park and the mosque. I won't name the building, but we're looking for something in the late 60s. It's probably less than half the size of that building.
Yeah. Go for it.
Katrina, I'm on a Zoom call. Can I phone you back, please?
Gary, I would like to know, of course, you mentioned quite a few interesting transactions and you've got a very good memory considering the sheer number of transactions you've done. Can you tell us a little bit about Rutland Gate? This was a 61,000 square foot transaction, 45 bedrooms. And I believe you
42 bedrooms to be precise.
42 bedrooms. And I believe you sold that for a world record, fee of £210 million.
Actually, it wasn't a fee, it was a price, and the price was not 210, it was £225 million.
225.
What would you like to know about that transaction?
How did it come about, and what was the process, the journey in getting a deal like that, of that magnitude, where the market is otherwise considered to be very illiquid and thin, over the line? What does it take to get a deal like that over the line?
It took three things. The first is for the buyer to like the building and put an offer forward that was acceptable to the seller. That we did. We almost got a deal accepted at 210 million, but the seller wanted a little bit more, so we added a kicker in which if we got planning permission for some extra square footage, the next £15 million would become payable. That happened. All of that happened. The most important part and the most interesting part of the transaction was the legal procedure. First of all, the purchaser bought the company. Now, if you imagine, just take a round figure of £200 million and 15% stamp duty. The stamp duty land tax would have been in excess of £30 million. So we had to buy the company. Very fortunately, the buyer's solicitor was probably the best solicitor I've dealt with in my entire career.
Wow.
And he managed to steer his way through the entire transaction, actually getting very little help from the seller side, and he had to do most of the due diligence himself. That took about 6 weeks or 7 weeks, and then we went straight on to exchange and completion simultaneously.
Excellent. So it didn't necessarily take so long, to get this done.
I can't remember precisely how long the negotiation period was, but I suspect the negotiation from the time of viewing to the time of exchange, for the time the contracts were signed, was probably the best part of 4 months.
Wow. Okay.
But that's from day one to day
Z.
end.
Yeah. Okay. And Gary, of course, this podcast is called the Humans of Finance podcast. Real estate agents are a very critical component of the real estate game in general. And I think we want to focus on the human side of things as well. We want to know a little bit about your personal journey. Where did it begin? And what did it take to get to where you are today? Could you give us some insight into that?
Very briefly, because I can't give you insight into 40-something years of work. My late father ran a series of 3 public companies, and I worked for one of them. I went to university, went to theological college, I did a PhD, I did a postgraduate degree, I worked for my father, and by complete chance, a friend of mine, Eric Pereira, came to our house for tea on a Sunday afternoon, and he said to me at the time, "Look, I've just bought into an estate agency. It's called Scott Gilroy. Would you like to join me? And if you put up £2,000 of loan capital, you can have 20% of the business." I was very fortunate as much as my father gave me the money to put into the business, and that partnership lasted for 6 or 7 months, at which point in time Eric turned around to me and said, "Look, my father's rather ill, I've got to go back to Singapore. If you can find somebody to buy 50% of the business for £10,000, you can have the remaining 30% bringing you up to 50%, and then you'll be a 50-50 shareholder in Beauchamp Estates." Well, I did find somebody. His name still is Joey Esfandi, and Joey put in £10,000. This next bit is unclear to me, because that £10,000 went into Beauchamp Estates kitty. Can't quite understand why that happened, but it did. That must have been in August 1978. By November, December 78, Joey said, "I've had enough of this. How much of my money is left?" And from memory, I think it was 9,250 quid. I said, "Joey, there's £9,250 left. Just give it to me and you can have the 50% back." So I gave it to Joey. I then owned 100% of Beauchamp Estates. That was, let's say, 78, 79. I can't remember the precise year. And I then had a partner, Penny Court, who joined me and was the shareholder in 30% or 33% of Beauchamp Estates. Penny retired a couple of years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, and Beauchamp Estates bought those shares back, or I bought those shares back. And now I'm partners with Jeremy G of Beauchamp Estates, and we both own the business together.
Wow, what a journey. It's very interesting to look back on things like this with the benefit of hindsight, and ultimately to be able to get 100% of Beauchamp Estates is a fantastic situation to be in.
Thank you.
You mentioned your father, and I would imagine him being a very influential figure in your life, but were there any other influential figures that guided your trajectory towards this industry in particular? Was it mainly your father? Were there any role models in that sense?
My father, as I said, was chairman of a very large PLC and chairman of 2 other PLCs simultaneously. So some of the role models were friends of his who were also chairman or managing directors of public companies in the UK. And role models, I had many role models over the years. Don't really want to mention any names.
Sure.
But people who are in the industry, in the property business today. Gerald Ronson, for example, is somebody who I'd phone up and say, "Can I come and see you?" And his secretary would say, "He's rather busy. Can you manage 6 o'clock this evening?" So he is still the type of man who I admire enormously, not only for his astute business acumen, but also for his generous availability at all times. There are various others, and time is too short for me to go through them. But having said that, there are many people in the London property market who I have admired over the years. There are people in the agency world who I've admired over the years. Andrew Langton, for example, of Aylesfords. No longer a spring chicken like me, but second to none in his ability to talk to people and to endear himself to people. And he taught me lots of things over the years.
Yeah. And you mentioned, being available, being able to communicate well as, characteristics and qualities you admire. And one thing I can attest to is you very much echo those characteristics in yourself, whenever I've spoken to you in the past and now. And are there any other specific characteristics in people that you look out for in terms of people you want to work with and people you want to bring on board to Beauchamp Estates? What are important to you?
I suppose there are very many characteristics, and selling is not the most important one. The ability to sell is certainly not the most important trait that a person who comes to work for any agency has to have. Integrity is the most important trait. Reliability, honesty, timekeeping, presentation, the way they present themselves, eloquence, pride in possession, and of course salesmanship. But salesmanship gets you by in a very, very good market. It does not get you by in a bad market.
Yeah.
And it's attention to detail, remembering what's going on, understanding the London world of property, understanding the property market that keeps you, gives you the ability to be a good estate agent. So again, I repeat, the gift of the gab and being able to sell are all very well, but they're not the be-all and end-all in a prime residential estate agency in central London.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine so. And Gary, the people that you work with, how would you think they describe you and working with you? What do they feel like that's like?
Well, in the past, I think they might have found me very difficult and very abrasive. I'm trying my best in the last few months to be less difficult, less abrasive, more welcoming, and more endearing to my team. Perhaps 70 odd years of life have made me more gentle. I don't know, but I'm trying my best to be more human than I was in the past.
Of course.
So I don't know what my team think of me, but hopefully they think better of me now than they did a few months ago.
I'm sure they've always thought very well of you. And would you say that's the same for your family, or is that a little different? Do they see another side of Gary?
My family are always in charge, whether it's my wife, whether it's my daughter, whether it's my son. They all feel that they have the absolute right to tell me what to do and when to do it. By the way, one of my guiding lights has always been, for the last 20 years, has been my wife, who is Russian and is rational beyond belief. Everything's black and white. There's no grey area. And she has always helped me in promoting my career.
Well, behind every successful man, it's the odd cliche, is a very influential woman, right? So
Thank you.
yeah. And Gary, if you could, go back in time to a younger version of yourself, how would you advise him on what is to come in your life and your career? Is there any bit of insight or guidance you would give to him?
I suppose I would say to a young Gary, don't be impetuous. My late father used to say, it can be dealt with tomorrow. Take time to understand it, dwell on it, give your answer tomorrow. Don't, spontaneity is all very well, but sometimes you need to take a step back and say to yourself, let me think about this or answer this in the clear light of day. I was always rushing when I was younger. Now it's time to think and reflect, and that is what I would say to a young Gary, think and reflect.
Would you say not enough young people do that even these days?
I don't know very much about young people other than the ones who are close to my children for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
I see them being very successful, and coming with their success, I see balance, stability, and clarity, and indeed a certain form of simplicity. So I'm seeing some of the younger generation, at least the ones that I've come across over the last 10 or 15 years, are very balanced, normal people. They say that people sometimes say I'm larger than life. Quite frankly, I think one needs to be less larger than life than one thinks one needs to be, and I think one needs to be aware of everybody around you and everything around you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Thank you.
And Gary, of course, we've been through quite a whirlwind in the last few years. We've had COVID, we've had rising interest rates, we've had a number of economic externalities affecting many markets. I'd be curious to understand how you and Beauchamp Estates have navigated these market uncertainties and able to stay to stay buoyant and to be successful? How do you go about that?
I don't think, thank you for that question. I don't think we have navigated COVID. I don't think we've navigated 5.5% interest rates. I think what has happened is the type of people we are dealing with are insulated from high interest rates. And a lot of the sales that we have done recently and over the years have been cash purchases with no requirement for a mortgage. And if there is a cash requirement for a loan, it's always post factum. I think we've got a very good following, which has enabled us to continue in tough markets. Apologies for that.
No, that's okay. It's a normal day, and you know it's nice to
Let
see
me just
this.
quickly
Yeah,
take this
go
call.
for it. Go for it.
Ernst, I haven't phoned you back because I'm waiting for Paddy Dring to speak to... Hello? So Paddy Dring said he will call me back once he's spoken to the young man at Knight Frank who is dealing with the property. He's going to come back to me. I spoke to him at midday today. I'm sure he'll phone me back within the hour. I'm on top of it. Don't worry, Ernst. I'm on top of it. Bye. I told you I thought the house is absolutely fabulous. I don't know what the value is, and I don't know how you get. I tell you what, Paddy told me. He did not think that you were marketing it at 35 million. He thought it was less than that. I don't know what it is, but I'm waiting for Paddy to phone me back. Bear with me. I'll be back with you in shortly.
It's good to actually see, you know, your phone ringing. It gives everybody an insight into, you know, a typical day of Gary Hersham's. And, you know, your phone must have an incredible battery life, or you must charge it regularly because it's always ringing and it's always busy.
I do charge it regularly. It does have a relatively decent battery life. It's a new phone, so one would hope it does have a decent battery life.
Yeah.
But on that note, I don't have much more time today, so can you please ask me some more relevant questions so I can go back to my work, because I'm getting ants in my pants.
Of course. Last couple of questions, and one just on the theme of, you know, technology and, you know, in this new age that we're in, you know, what innovative strategies does Beauchamp Estates currently employ to navigate the ever evolving and ever crowded landscape of real estate?
Can't answer that question, but I can tell you we have a compliance team, we have a legal team, we have a marketing team, and they're all very good at what they do. And I'm sure we've just launched a brand new website. We're totally up to speed in all those things.
Excellent. Gary, I don't want to keep you too long.
Thank you.
Last question, actually last two questions. Second to last question would be for anybody that's curious about what it's like to work here. Do you have a specific culture here? How would you describe the culture here, the environment that you've created?
It's a family culture.
A family culture.
I know every single one of my staff. Look, I don't have a huge amount of staff, but I know everybody by first name. We're all friends. I don't put myself above or below anybody. We're all equal. I try my best not to interfere with their deals. I try my best to help them. And we have a very family culture here.
Yeah. And that's a recurring theme I've seen in long-standing institutions, you know, and it's very nice to see. Lastly, Gary, what are the objectives and targets that you have for the upcoming year, if you have any objectives and targets?
Okay, so the upcoming targets are to expand our business. We now have offices, several in London, 4 in the south of France, 1 in Israel, 1 in Mykonos, 1 in New York. I think maybe 1 somewhere else, I don't remember. We're about to open a new office in Spain, and we're going to expand in the UK. So in the next few years, I hope to double the number of offices I have worldwide.
Excellent.
All in prime, super prime markets.
So always the focus being prime, super prime real estate.
Always the focus, super prime.
Super prime, that's it. Okay, Gary?
Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast. If any of the products or services mentioned in this video are of interest to you or anybody in your network, then please do get in contact with us at info@navigatefinance.com. where you'll be put through to an expert advisor who will provide you with everything you need to know and guide you through the process to achieve a cost-effective solution to your inquiry. Thank you.